The amount of food I waste on a regular basis would be much, much higher were it not for fried rice. It's been my go-to clear out the fridge meal for years now, so I decided to film it this time around. Today we're doing a chorizo and potato fried rice, but really this is more of a technique video than a recipe video. With just a few key bits of know-how, you can turn basically anything into this super satisfying, comforting staple that everyone loves. So, without further ado, let's make some fried rice. The first ingredient in fried rice, obviously, is the rice. Normally I would be doing this with rice left over from something else the day or two before, but I don't have any of that today, so let's make some. I'm doing 1 cup of basmati rice, but really any type will do here. The key is to cook the rice in a relatively low proportion of water. This is just 1 1/4 cups of water, which will result in a drier, fluffier texture. The drier the rice, the fewer the clumps you'll have to contend with later, and the less of a chance your fried rice becomes gummy. Leftover, or day-old rice, has had time to dry out naturally, which is why it works so well for this. Anyways, cook it however you cook rice. For me, I'll bring it up to a simmer on high, turn the heat all the way down to low, and let it go for about 15 minutes or until all the water is absorbed. So now, the other important thing to consider with fried rice is mise en place. When everything is going into the pan at the end, it's all gonna happen fast, so you want your ingredients prepped beforehand. For me today, that means I gotta take care of this russet potato. For this carb-on-carb affair to make sense, I want it to bring a lot of crispy, crunchy texture to the party, and that's gonna take a couple steps. I'm chopping it up into a 1/2-inch dice, and then I'll drop it into some well-salted, boiling water. I'm going to boil this for about 10 minutes or until they're just starting to go tender all the way through. A lot of recipes for crispy potatoes will have you boil them first until they're basically falling apart, but these are such small pieces that if I did that, I'd be afraid that they would dissolve into basically nothing. So I'll take them a little less far and sacrifice a little bit of crispiness, but that's okay with me. Once they're there, I'll remove them to some paper towels to blot off the excess moisture, and then I'll transfer them to a wire rack to cool down and air dry completely. This step is key to getting them crispy when we fry them later. In the meanwhile, my rice should be done now, so let's take a look. You can see how separate the grains are and how fluffy it is there, which is exactly what I want to see. This is done, so now, in an effort to get it even drier, I'm going to transfer it to a plate and spread it out so it can release as much steam as possible before I fry it. The thinner you can spread the rice, the better here, so use whatever large plate or platter that you have. I'm going to set that aside for now and return to my potatoes, which have dried and formed kind of a pellicle on the outside. That slightly tacky exterior is what's going to help these go really crisp. I'm frying those in a nonstick skillet over medium heat, in which I have just enough neutral oil to fill the bottom of the pan. I'll fry them for roughly 15 minutes or so, or until they're dark brown and crispy all around, kinda like this. I'm gonna drain these and season them up with salt, pepper, and paprika. The potatoes are ready. The rice is ready. All that's left prep-wise is to chop a few things up, so let's do that. First up, I've got a medium-sized onion here. That's gonna get a rough dice today, no need to get it super fine. Next up, some aromatics. I've got 4 cloves of garlic that I'll mince up, and then I'll do a roughly equal quantity of ginger. And then finally, some herbs. Today, I have a bunch of chives that have been hanging out in the fridge for a few days, so I'll use those up, and then I'll steal some of this cilantro. That'll get a rough chop, and with that, our prep work and mise en place is done. So now it's finally time to put this all together. I'll be using my wok today, but you can use a large non-stick skillet if you don't have one, just go a little easier on the heat. This has been preheating over high heat, so in goes about a tablespoon of oil, and I'll give that a swirl to get a nice non-stick surface, aka long yao. We want to add our ingredients to the wok in the order of what will take the longest to cook, so we start with the protein. This is roughly 1/3 pound or 150 grams of chorizo. As soon as it goes in, I'll start smashing it up as much as I can with my spatula. By the way, if you want to turn your vent fan on or open a window for this, that would not be a bad idea. Smash, toss, and stir that until it's pretty much all the way cooked through, and then I'll add my onion. Personally, I'm okay with the onion still retaining some crispiness, but I do want to take the raw edge off of it at least, so I'll toss that around in there for a minute or so. This tossing action is very fun, but also serves the important function of letting as much moisture evaporate out of the pan as possible. As we established before, excess moisture is kind of the enemy of a good fried rice, so anything we can do to avoid it is a good thing. Next, in goes the garlic and ginger. These don't really need much time at all. There's plenty of heat here to soften those up pretty immediately. So I'll just work them in, and then I'll add my potatoes and rice. I'll stir and toss those to work it all in and to get everything coated with that chorizo fat. And then finally, I'll add my herbs, and I'll season this with just about a tablespoon or so of soy sauce. Between the chorizo, soy sauce, and the salt I added to the rice earlier when I cooked it, mine is well seasoned at this point, but always check to make sure at the end that yours has enough salt to taste good to you. And with that, this chorizo and potato fried rice is done. Let's go ahead and plate this up. You could eat this as a side to something else, of course, or you can do what I'm gonna do and treat it like the main course. And for a little extra decadence, here I have some kewpie mayo mixed with chili crisp, a touch of sesame oil, and just a little water to thin it out to a drizzleable consistency. This is incredibly tasty, and it's tasty every time, no matter what I put into my fried rice. To be able to make a good one is an essential skill, I think, for all home cooks who need a way to use up scraps that always seem to pile up in the fridge throughout the week. I hope I've inspired you to give it a go sometime. If you do, let me know in the comments how yours turns out. For written recipes, along with other exclusive fun stuff, consider supporting me on Patreon. The link for that is in the description below. Anyways, that's all for now. Thanks. Bye.